There's no room for your kids. My family repeated every holiday while my sister's twins and even their dog had a reserved spot. But this year I bought a penthouse in New York. My name's Danielle Rach. I'm 34. And every holiday, my family told me there was no room for my kids, said softly. Like it was about square footage and not priorities while the golden child. My sister Sabrina always had a guest room made up. A play corner for her twins. And a cushioned spot by the fireplace for her golden doodle. Pepper. For as long as I remember. The script was rehearsed. Thanksgiving. Christmas. New Year's. Then a spring birthday or two. The same warm voice from my mother Danny. You understand. Right. The twins need a routine. Routine meant 2 cribs once. Then 2 toddler bits. Then 2 color-coded duffels lined up like runway lights. Routine meant Pepper's water bowl placed on a small mat that said home in block letters. My children Noah, who collects subway maps. And Ellie, who calls pigeons. City chickens were offered the porch swing if it wasn't too cold. Or the couch if the twins needed the sensory space. You know how they are at this age. Mom would say. As if ages were emergency sirens. I nodded because nodding was faster than arguing. And arguing made my father rub his forehead and pretend he had to go check the garage. The first time it stuck under my skin and stayed there was December 24. 2021. We drove 3 hours in shoulder-to-shoulder traffic with a trunk full of gifts and 2 sleepy kids. I texted ahead. We'll be there by 6. At 5:54 p.m. My phone buzzed. There's no room for your kids tonight. The twins got overtired. So sorry. I read it in a gas station lot off exit 18 while Ellie hummed a carol and Noah fell asleep holding a paper snowflake. I called. Mom. What do you want me to do? She lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret. Maybe a motel. There's one by the mall. We'll see you for breakfast. I remember the receipt because numbers turned shame into proof. $119. Audio Tradive after Texas. Morning came. Sabrina's twins raced toy cars around the tree. Noah watched from the doorway like a guest peeking into someone else's party. I told myself it was a fluke. I should have known better. The second time was smaller but meaner. April 16. 2022. My father's birthday. I asked if I could bring a cake. Oh good. Mom said. Sabrina's bringing gluten-free cupcakes for the kids. So maybe something light. Also. Danny. Could you swing by Ortega's and pick up the roast? They close at 5. Sure. I said. Because sure was the currency of eldest sons. I paid $186. $70 for a roast. I didn't taste. By the time I arrived, the dining room sat like a seating chart for a play. I wasn't in 2 end chairs for my parents. 4, together, for Sabrina's family. A small stool dragged over for Pepper so she won't wander. And my mother truly said there's 2 spots at the kitchen counter, where your kids can have their own fun. Noah whispered. Are we in trouble? I said. No. Buddy. We're just over here today. Sabrina passed me on her way to the table. Thanks for the roast. Lifesaver. I smiled because frowning would have knocked the dishes off their balance. The third time felt like a math problem I kept failing. July 4. 2023. Fireworks. Hot dogs. A cooler full of seltzers. Weeks earlier, I'd asked if we could get one of the spare rooms just once. We'll see. Mom had said. The day came. And the spare room had 2 little tents set up for the twins. It's cute for photos and a sign taped to the door. Quiet please. Pepper napped with a patriotic bandana. Ellie tugged my sleeve. Where do we go when it's bedtime? Mom didn't meet my eyes. Oh. Sweetheart. There are blankets on the screened porch. It's like camping. Around 10. The temperature dropped, and the porch screens whistled. I checked my account and sent my sister $320 for the fireworks she fronted for the family. She didn't say thank you. She did post a video captioned. Making memories. In the background. You can hear Ellie ask if camping means the floor. I kept a ledger. I never showed anyone dates. Small sums. Favors that sounded like kindness until you added them up. $75 for Sabrina's PTA raffle basket. We're all pitching in. $40 for Pepper's grooming because I was already at the mall and the queue was long. Twice I left work early to pick up the twins from a dentist appointment because Sabrina was in a meeting with real consequences. Each time, I told myself next year will be different. It became a lullaby. Next year will be different. Next year we'll stop apologizing. Next year we'll find a spine. Then September came with a promotion that wasn't flashy. It was a quiet yes. After years of invisible work. A better title. A bump that made the rent math tilt in my favor. And the possibility of living near the office, instead of between a freeway and a laundromat. I found a top 4 unit in Midtown that people kept calling a penthouse because the elevator dinged one extra time and the hallway light didn't hum. Faux balconis. Actual sunlight that warmed the counter by 10 every morning. Enough room for bunk beds without someone's elbow hanging off. A table that didn't wobble when Ellie drew constellations, and no assorted train schedules by line color. I called it sunlight. Everyone else called it fancy. I took a picture that first afternoon, the view. The river threading between buildings. A hopeful little plant by the door. I sent it to the family chat. Mom typed first. Oh my goodness. Danny. I'm so proud. Dad followed with proud of you. Son. His consistent punctuation for birthdays and graduations. Then Sabrina. Like a siren. You want to ignore. But can't. We're packing our things right now. For a second I laughed, my brain's reflex to absurdity. Then the familiar chill slid in. Sabrina never jokes when it benefits her. I replied. This isn't a hotel. We're not doing that. My hands shook. She shot back instantly. Like the keys had been pre-pressed. Sure. But seriously. When can we move in? The twins can share a room. Pepper loves balcony. There's no Pepper bed here. I typed. I set the phone down before it burned a ring into the counter. The dots reappeared. Then you're serious. Yes. I wrote. 10 seconds later. Mom's name lit the screen. I let it ring twice. Danny. She said. Without hello. Why are you being difficult? I rubbed my temple the way Dad does when conversations need props. I'm not being difficult. Mom. I'm being clear. She sighed. A chair scraped. Your sister's landlord is impossible. Just let them crash until they find something new. She softened on crash. Like the word had feathers. I'm not a crash pad. I said. You have space. It's my space. I answered. The pause that followed felt like I'd said something impolite in a library. We've always made room for Sabrina's family because they have more moving parts. Mom said. Shifting to the line I knew was coming. I have 2 moving parts. I said. They're called children. The call clicked as Dad picked up on the other line, like it was 1997. What's going on? He asked. Your son bought a penthouse and doesn't want us in it. Mom said. Casting me as the villain with a velvet voice. It's an apartment. I corrected. And I don't want roommates. Sabrina joined speaker with the timing of someone stepping through a door she'd always had a key to. We helped you. Daniel. She said. How? I asked. Genuinely curious, which version of history we were using. We babysat twice last year. I sent you $1. 200 since January. I said. Calm. Because the ledger wasn't fiction. Mom. Sabrina said, vowels tightened by practiced tears. I told him not to make you worry about my finances. The performance was old, the set had new lighting. Fine. Sabrina pivoted. Not forever. Just Thanksgiving. We'll host it at yours. It'll be easier for everyone. I opened my mouth, and Mom's voice cut in. Gentler than a knife. But as sharp. Non-negotiable. Everything's negotiable. I said. Surprised by how steady I sounded. You're punishing me for old choices. She said. Reaching for unfairness like a shawl. I'm preventing new ones. I said. Nobody spoke. The city outside made its steady hush. Like the ocean, you hear only when you stop talking. That night. I ate takeout on the balcony, lukewarm noodles. A soda already flat. Above the avenue. The air moved soft and patient. I thought about every no room that really meant no you. I thought about motel receipts and porch blankets, and the way my son had learned to fold himself small. The little plant caught the last of the sunset and pretended it was summer. I should have known that setting a boundary would be received not as a sentence but as an opening bid. I should have known that clarity would sound like cruelty to people who benefited from my confusion. Still. For the first time in years. I slept without waking to check the group chat. Morning brought a family thread revving up like traffic. I didn't open it. Noah padded into the kitchen and pointed at a square of moving light on the floor. Is the sun visiting? He asked. Every day. I said. Ellie dragged her blanket to the table and asked if bunk beds were like a treehouse you didn't have to climb. I told her yes. And it was true. Small things were true now. Doors could close and not be pried open. Invitations could be declined without apology paragraphs. Choices could be made for us. Not around us. And because clarity matters. Here's the part I want perfectly straight for whatever comes next, at this point in the timeline post-promotion. Pre-Thanksgiving. Sabrina hasn't sent me any lease paperwork. No drafts. No screenshots. That will be later. And it will be a separate ask with its own date. This morning. All I know is that Thanksgiving is a week away. My phone is a hive of persuasive sentences. And the shape of my answer won't change to fit someone else's furniture. Thanksgiving morning started with the building intercom, a soft chime. Then Marco's careful voice. Mr. Reyes. There's a family here with a dog and quite a lot of food. Should I let them know you're on your way down? I didn't need the camera feed. I could picture the scene, mom with a casserole held like a backstage pass. Dad with a cooler, because having a cooler makes an arrival look official. Sabrina balancing Pepper on one hip and Boots on the other, while the twins bounced as if the lobby were an amusement ride. I'll come down. I said. Noah looked up from his cereal. Spoon hovering. Grandma. I nodded. Ellie clapped. Then paused. Reading my face like a weather map. We'll see. I told them. The softest way to say not today. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. When the doors opened. Childhood rearranged itself on marble floors. Mom's smile was too bright. The kind that pretends to be a welcome and is really an override. Surprise, she said. Because surprise skips permission. Sabrina did a full little turn with Pepper. We brought everything. She announced. Chin towards 6 foil trays. Paper bags. 2 towers of plastic cups. And a folded card table. Plates? 2. She added. As if plates were the problem I'd been wrestling for years. No. I said. The word came steady. Go home. The twins' faces crumpled in tandem. Mom recovered first. Smoothing the air with her voice. Danny. Don't make a scene. There it was, the incantation. I'm preventing one. I said. Sabrina blinked. Then tried on exasperation like a coat. You can't be serious. We told the kids. I crouched to the twins' height. Hey. I said. Keeping my tone warm. Park on Saturday. Hot chocolate. The kind with little marshmallows. They glanced at each other, the telegraph of twins, and both nodded. Can Pepper come? Pepper can come. I said. She's excellent at catching crumbs. Sabrina made a sound like a laugh with the joy removed. This is ridiculous. She declared to the ceiling. As if it might send down a verdict. I stood and faced my mother. I said this wasn't happening. Mom raised the casserole higher. Like weight could establish authority. Dad tried a half shrug that asked me to relent so he wouldn't have to referee. We already cooked. He said. Which wasn't the point, and also entirely the point. Sabrina pressed the card table, and one leg snapped into place. For a second, I saw the next hour an improvised buffet that would become precedent. The apartment reinvented by audacity. Marco. I said without turning. Because he was already close. Professional and kind. Could you help them arrange a car and let them know nearby options if they're looking for a place to eat? He nodded once, no drama. Just logistics. Realistic logistics. Sabrina's mouth tightened. You're really doing this? I already did. I said. People in the lobby pretended to study their phones. A woman slipped by with a bouquet of sunflowers, another world. Same building. Pepper panted happily. Unconcerned with policy or precedent. I touched Mom's shoulder. I love you. I said. Because it was true, and because I needed a sentence that wasn't a strategy. But I meant what I said. They left like weather dissatisfied. Promising to return. Marco held the door with the quiet dignity of a person who understands rules are not meanness. Their structure. Apologies for the commotion. He said to me. Which in our language meant. You did the difficult thing. Thanks. Marco. He lifted 2 fingers, an understated salute. Back upstairs. The apartment felt like an island that had finally learned its coastline. I half expected to find footprints where a line had been tested. But it was only cereal on the counter and a fort. Ellie had started and abandoned. Are they coming up? She asked from the floor. Already arranging books into a border. Not today. I said. Okay. She replied. And resumed her construction, as if certainty fit easily in her hands. We didn't roast a turkey. The oven in this place is lovely. But a bird the size of a toddler is too much for 3. We roasted a chicken because it fits in one pan and smells like a promise you can keep. While it browned. We set the table with plates that don't match but belong together anyway. Noah folded napkins into train cars and labeled each with a subway line. Ellie taped a paper leaf to the wall and wrote thanks for light in her determined scrawl. Around 3. The sun slid into the living room like a guest who knows when to leave. We scooped cranberry sauce into a chipped bowl. Ellie lifted it with ceremony and promptly tipped it over. The red river ran across the cloth. She looked at me. Waiting to learn whether accidents cost love. We'll call it modern art. I said. And meant it. Noah arrived with paper towels. Announcing he was on cleanup detail in a radio voice. We laughed the relief kind. Not the rebellion kind. We ate chicken skin that crackled. Ate green beans with almonds because I can make them without thinking. Box stuffing rescued with butter. We toasted with seltzer. Bubbles make it a party. Noah declared. And Ellie insisted her water had bubbles too. Then made fizzing noises to prove it until she ran out of breath. After. We didn't do anything remarkable. We watched a movie about a family learning to listen. And I did not miss the irony. Ellie fell asleep on the couch with one foot protruding from the blanket like a bookmark. Noah sketched the skyline as it looked when the credits rolled rectangles for windows. A single crayon streak for the river. That's us. He said. Circling a spot that could have been anywhere. We're here. I checked my phone reluctantly. Missed calls. A paragraph from Mom about tradition and togetherness. A short one from Dad call, when you can, that felt like a narrow hallway between rooms. Sabrina had posted a photo of the twins at their kitchen table, with trays of untouched stuffing. Caption holiday ruined by stubbornness. She didn't say whose. I typed and deleted a few times. Then sent. We're having a good day. See you at the park Saturday. I waited for the argument to jump out of the screen. It didn't. The apartment hummed fridge. Radiator. Ellie's soft breathing. Somewhere. Several floors down. Someone laughed. The sound climbing the stairwell like a balloon. At 10? Marco called back. Just to update you. Mr. Reyes. He said. Neutral as a rule book. Your family made other arrangements for lunch. I offered to call a car earlier. And they accepted later. Practical. Not punitive. Thanks for letting me know. I said. He hesitated. Then added. Happy Thanksgiving. You too. I answered. And meant it. I expected to lie awake, rehearsing my defense for messages that might arrive overnight. Instead. Sleep came like it remembers where I live. Morning brought the quiet pleasure of leftover chicken turned into sandwiches, and the miracle of finding the scissors where we left them. Ellie made breakfast place cards, and gave one to Pepper. Then laughed. When she remembered Pepper wasn't here. Saturday. I reminded her. Hot chocolate. She held up 2 fingers. 2 marshmallows. 3. I bargained. Suddenly flush with leverage. She grinned. Deal. A noon text from Dad. Your mother will cool off. Be patient. I stared at it, paternal hope that time alone can untangle a knot. Time helps. Sure. But boundaries don't heal by being ignored, they heal by being honored twice, once by the person who sets them and once by the people who choose not to push. I sent him Noah's drawing and wrote. We're okay. He replied with a thumbs up. À moment la terre. Proud of you. Son. Same punctuation. As always. Different weight. I saved it anyway. In the afternoon. I walked 2 blocks to the thrift store and found a small plant stand. Carried it home like it was heavier than it was. And lifted the little plant by the balcony, just an inch higher. The leaves seemed to angle toward the brighter spot. Maybe I imagined it because I needed a metaphor that wasn't strained. Either way. I stood there with my palm on the cool metal, looking at the reflection of our room in the glass. For a second, it looked doubled, 2 tables, 2 couches, 2 versions of us. In one. People arrived uninvited and stayed because I didn't know how to ask them to leave. In the other, 3 plates and a paper leaf on the wall said thanks for light. And nobody performed surprise as a method of entry. Breadcrumbs of realism kept the day anchored. I emailed the building to confirm guest code settings for the holidays, and thanked Marco in the app. Adding to the staff fund, small governance that supports the bigger one at home. I put the folded card table we didn't use back in the hall closet and labeled the shelf with masking tape party. Later. It felt honest. As the sun leaned away, Noah asked, "Was Grandma mad?" Honesty wrapped in kindness is the rule I try to keep. She was surprised. I said no. I said, "Sometimes people confuse that with mad." He thought about it. Then nodded like he'd store the distinction for a day in middle school when it would matter. That night, the building settled with tiny pops. I set out the thermoses for Saturday and counted packets of cocoa like we were preparing for a small expedition. Ellie taped a reminder on the door. At Kid Hyde Park marshmallows, Pepper can come. The list made me smile. No tricks. No loopholes. Just a plan. Plain and enough. Before bed, I turned the deadbolt, a simple sound that had become a bell. Not a barrier. I stood a moment longer than necessary, listening to the quiet. Not the kind that means isolation. The kind you get when a place knows who lives there. I didn't know what Christmas would bring. Or what New Year's would try to become. I did know the shape of my answer. And that it would not change to fit someone else's furniture. December didn't so much arrive as lean into the apartment, bringing early dark and a parade of messages. 2 days after Thanksgiving, Sabrina texted, "Let's do Christmas at yours. City lights. Kids will love it." I typed no and put the phone face down. 10 minutes later. Okay. Then cookie exchange on the 20th. Low-key. No. I wrote. And left it at that. The next morning, fireworks from your balcony. Pepper hates the noise here. I pictured my balcony crowded with coats and paper cups. Everyone narrating the wind. The dog can meditate. I sent and waited for the scolding. Instead, you're being dramatic. The quiet that followed wasn't peace, it was planning. Mid-December. Marco called in that steady concierge tone he uses when the lobby becomes theater. "Mr. Reyes. There's a delivery that says it belongs to you." "A delivery?" I asked. 6 moving boxes. A large exercise machine. 2 children. And a golden dog. He said, reciting the inventory like a poem. "I'll be right down." The lobby looked like a warehouse, had married a playground. 6 boxes stacked like a castle wall. A peloton tilted against the marble. The twins clambered over the base like mountain goats. Pepper's tail drew happy commas on the floor. Sabrina stood in leggings and resolve. Phone under hair. Chin. Telling a person who wasn't there. "It's fine. We're already here." She saw me. "Don't be dramatic. It's temporary. You ignored me because you decided I was unreasonable." I said. Voice even. "It's not ignoring." She countered. Already loosening a knot on one box. "It's logistics. Our building is repainting. The twins need stability. You have space." She gestured upward like my ceiling was part of her plan. I looked at the box's toys. Kitchen. Winter. And one that said just in case. Which no one writes on a 48-hour loan. "You're really doing this?" I asked. Though the answer sat there in cardboard. "I already did," she said. And relief flashed across her face. The kind you see when a shortcut lands. No one helped her. No one helped me. People watched with that city blend of curiosity and discretion, eyes up. Down. Away. The twins waved. Excitement unburdened by context. "Uncle Dan, can Pepper use your balcony?" "No." "Buddy," I said gently. "Sidewalk for Pepper. Balcony for plants." "You're being petty." Sabrina snapped. "I'm being clear." I said. "You can't move into my home." I turned to Marco. "Could you please call a car service and give them nearby hotel options? If they need help booking, I'd appreciate it." "Of course," he said. "Already dialing." Realistic logistics. Not theater. We're not leaving. Sabrina announced. Soft enough to sound like fact. The old reflex rose carve a compromise. Call it kindness. Wear the fracture later. A week. I could say. Just until the paint dries. But exceptions multiply on contact. I thought of Noah's careful skyline. Ellie's thanks for light taped to a wall we finally owned. And felt the answer settle. You are leaving. I said quietly. And you're taking the boxes. She stepped closer. Tears sharpening hair. Vowels. You're punishing me for being the one Mom worries about. No. I said. I'm protecting my kids from being the ones you never worry about. She flinched. Truth does that when it lands square. You'll thank me later. She shot back. A family phrase we used to launder bad ideas. If you show up again with boxes, you won't get upstairs. I said. Steady enough that the twins went still. Pepper thumped her tail. Devoted to the present tense. The car arrived. Marco and the driver lifted boxes. Sabrina shouldered the peloton with martyr posture. Mom called just then. Voice in my ear like an old song. Why are you being difficult? I'm not. I said. I'm being clear. She sighed into a pause that asked me to fill it with surrender. I didn't. They left angry. Good. Anger at least recognizes a boundary exists. 48 hours later. The family group thread revived like a generator. Mom. We're doing Christmas dinner at your place. Me, you're not. Mom, we already told the twins. Me. Tell them plans changed. Sabrina. If we show up? You'll thank us later. Me, if you show up. You won't get upstairs. Dad tried to bridge, lunch at ours. Dessert at yours. Me dessert at the park Saturday. Hot chocolate. Silence pooled. Then Mom, don't do this to the family. I didn't answer. I wasn't doing it to the family. I was doing it for mine. Christmas morning. Marco rang again. There's a family here insisting they're expected. He said. Professionalism softening the edges. They have several dishes and a folding table. I looked at the kids already in matching pajamas Ellie had decreed a month ago. Please let them know we won't be receiving visitors. I said. Offer to help arrange transportation and suggest nearby hotels if they need accommodations. A beat. Then understood. I'll assist them with options. We made pancakes. Ellie used star molds and, when the batter made comets instead, declared them perfect. Noah wrapped and rewrapped a book for me because the ritual was the point. We opened gifts slowly. A mug with a skyline. Socks that actually matched. A drawing of our building labeled "or house" in block letters. I pretended the drawing didn't light a fuse in my chest. At 10. The group chat pinged a photo of the twins at a hotel buffet. Metal trays. Reflecting ceiling lights. Pepper conspicuously absent behind revolving doors. Caption. Making memories anyway. I waited for the guilt tide. It didn't come. What arrived was smaller and sturdier. The hope that the twins loved waffle irons shaped like stars. That some stranger handed them extra syrup with a wink. That their day was fine. Without our apartment being a stage. We built a fort from sheets that kept collapsing because laughter is terrible for architecture. We FaceTimed Dad alone. He looked off screen a lot. Picking words like they were screws in a cluttered bin. Merry Christmas. He said. And the kids formed a chorus of evidence that we were okay. Your mother is resting. He added. Code for opposite. Tell her the kids are happy. I said. He nodded like he might try it on and see if it fit. By afternoon. Snow auditioned for a role. It didn't quite get flurries that couldn't commit. We took a block walk to count trees still lit after daylight. 7. We gave the award to a balcony that looked dipped in stars. Back home. An envelope sat crooked under our door. My mother's handwriting, Daniel. We are disappointed and hurt. Your door has always been open. Love. Mom. No signature from Dad. Which meant he was in the garage or being told to be. I slid the note into the drawer with tape and batteries, a place for things you keep without pretending they're tools you need every day. That night. The building exhaled. In those tiny pops. Old buildings have. I texted Marco a thank you and a holiday bonus through the app. He replied with a simple, appreciated. It felt good to appreciate someone who treated boundaries as instructions. Not suggestions. Small governance supporting the bigger one at home. We set our New Year's midnight for 9 p.m. Because magic is something you're allowed to schedule. We made a paper ball on a string. Counted down from 20, because 10 felt too short for how much we had to celebrate. And shouted in an apartment that didn't have spectators. At 9:07. Sabrina posted a photo from a crowded sidewalk, hats askew. Pepper with glittery numbers on her collar. Caption: found a spot anyway. I typed nothing. Some narratives run out of room when you stop feeding them. New Year's Day. The park was honest, cold, breathmaking clouds. Laughter. Traveling far. Hot chocolate from the cart with joy taped to its side. The twins bargained for marshmallows. I said 4. The vendor. A professional conspirator. Slipped them 5 with a wink. Pepper licked a spill and wagged like generosity had a flavor. It was good. No speeches. No scripts. Just the thing we'd promised. Radical. In context. Sabrina arrived late. Sunglasses, like armor. So. She began the word that means the monologue is cued. Are we done with this punishment phase? I handed a napkin to one twin and a lid to the other. I'm done hosting without consent. I said. Call it whatever you want. She exhaled. A punctuation mark. Mom says you're tearing the family apart. Mom calls it togetherness when she means control. I said. Gentle but steel. We're here. We're fine. She looked at the kids for an opening and found 4 marshmallow scientists and a dog practicing shake. She sat. Phone face down. Toe drawing a line in the dirt. After a while, my lease is up in March. There's a clause I don't get. Something about an inflation adjustment and a facilities fee that doesn't exist. Blinked. Email it. I said. I'll read it. She smirked. So you can tell me to book a different hotel, so you don't sign something that hurts you. I said. Odd and right at once. Whatever. She muttered. But the bite was smaller. Send it. I repeated. Fine. We watched the kids rank marshmallows by size and vote on the best sip. We left when noses turned pink, and the dog decided squirrels were a constitutional right. Sabrina didn't hug me. I didn't expect her to. That, too, felt like sanity. Back home. Noah drew a map of the park on the Coco receipt. Complete with a legend. Best bench. Good view. Squirrel zone. Ellie tore her napkin into a snowflake that looked like lace and declared it winter confetti. I put the map in my pocket and decided to leave it wrinkled. Some proofs should keep their creases. That evening, Dad called from the garage. The acoustics giving his words a hollow comfort. How are the kids' reports given? A pause. Your mother equates togetherness with location. He said finally. She equates togetherness with control. I answered. Not cruel. Just naming. He tapped the workbench twice. His off-the-record agreement. You were firm. He said. You were clear. Coming from him. Those words felt like medals. We'll stop by next week. He added. Just me first. Bring the good screwdriver. I said. And he laughed. January stepped in with its gray honesty. School routines returned. Work emails found rhythm. We returned library books on time and celebrated the no-fine receipt like we'd won a raffle. Some evenings I thought about the next line of conflict. Because patterns don't retire after one season. I didn't know when the lease email would land. I did know this, we had made it through Thanksgiving and Christmas without turning our home into a waiting room. The walls remembered. So did we? January tried to be ordinary gray mornings. School routines. The soft thrum of radiators, while the group chat cooled into weather talk and forwarded memes. Peace. In my family. Often means everyone's saving their speeches. I kept expecting a new angle. A fresh attempt to rename my boundary as a misunderstanding. What came instead was quiet. Which I tried to accept like a reasonable person and not read as the drumroll it usually is. One Thursday at 4:18 p.m. The intercom chimed. Marco's voice carried the polite echo of the lobby. Mr. Reyes. There's a family here, insisting they have permission to come up. They've brought more than overnight bags. His phrasing was careful. A courtesy and a warning. Keep the elevator where it is. I said. I'll come down. The lobby had become a stage set I knew too well. Sabrina stood with a duffel and the particular posture of someone who's already decided the outcome. The twins wore backpacks, an earnest hope. Pepper sat. Fleece sweater on. Tail sweeping a halo. 2 boxes essentials written in thick marker flanked the scene like exclamation points. Mom had her hands clasped at her waist. The way she does when she's about to call something tradition. Dad hovered nearby with a neutral face that tried to be Switzerland and kept landing on Staten Island. We're here for a week. Sabrina said, before, hello. Old place is fumigating. New lease starts on the 1st. She added. With a sideways glance. And your phone didn't seem to be taking texts. I turned off guest codes. I said. On purpose. I nodded at the boxes. This looks like more than a week. They're labeled, so it's easier for you. She said. As if helpfulness were the point. For me? The grammar of entitlement always does its work. You is a suggestion machine. Go home. I said. Voice steady. Or go to a hotel. Or to Mom and Dad's. Mom jumped in on cue. We're painting the guest room. She said. Like oxygen. Like an explanation that absolved all other logistics. Sabrina added. Pepper can't be around the fumes. Elevating a dog's respiratory comfort to law. I have 2 kids upstairs doing homework at the kitchen table. I said. They need their home to be a home. Not a waiting room. The sentence surprised me in how much ground it covered. How little it shook. Sabrina's eyes filmed with the kind of tears that once moved furniture. You're cruel. She whispered. We helped you. We watched your kids twice. I said. Not to minimize, but to measure. And I sent you money when you needed it. I felt Dad's gaze ask me to be generous. Fine. Thank you for those times. I added. They were real. They weren't a lease on my space. Don't make a scene. Mom said softly. Deploying the old spell. I turned to her. I'm ending one. The twins tensed. Then relaxed when I crouched to their height. Saturday. I said. Park. Hot chocolate. You set the marshmallow count. As long as the cup still looks like a cup. One smiled. The other checked Sabrina for permission. She gave a brittle nod that passed for yes. I stood and addressed the part of this that wasn't family. Marco. Could you please arrange a car service and provide nearby hotel options? He nodded. Of course. He stepped to the desk and lifted the handset. Eyes, scanning the posted building policies, the way a good doorman does grounding action in rules. Not in personalities. Sabrina lifted one of the boxes a few inches. Then set it down theatrically. We'll wait. She announced. To me. To Marco. To the marble. If we wait long enough, you'll see how unreasonable you're being. Building policy requires advance approval for visitors with large items. Marco said evenly. Not looking at me. Reading from the sign as much as speaking. Today isn't approved. It was the smallest thing, a sentence with a spine, but it held. Dad shifted. Hands in his coat pockets. A man searching for a tool. We'll take them. He said at last. Voice low. He half turned toward Sabrina. Offering shelter with his body language as much as his words. For the week. She scowled. Your place is far. We'll manage. He answered. And I heard in it the rare click of him choosing a lane. The car arrived. Marco and the driver handled the boxes. I paid for the ride via the app before anyone could object. The twins hugged Pepper. Then me. Whispering. 4 marshmallows like a password. Mom kissed my cheek in a way that combined love with reprimand. Sabrina carried the lighter box with martyrdom in her shoulders and didn't meet my eyes. The elevator doors closed. And the lobby turned back into a lobby. Upstairs. The apartment exhaled. Noah looked up from his worksheet. Was that the scene? That was the end of one. I said. Ellie held up a math problem she'd solved without help and asked if the lighthouse could flash twice tonight for luck. Twice. I said. Maybe 3 times. But don't tell the Coast Guard. After dinner. The lease email arrived. Subject line. Can you look at this please? No emojis. The PDF was 12 pages. With an inflation rider that could float a month's groceries and a facilities enhancement fee that read like a wish list. I brewed tea. Opened my laptop. And did the exact task she'd asked me to do once. Clearly. On the record of this timeline. I made notes. Bullet points. Bolded phrases to push back on. A red flag by a clause that tried to redefine late as anything after the first minute of the first day. I suggested alternate wording. Cited tenant law where it actually applied. And added one line in plain English. If they refuse to remove or clarify these, walk. I read it twice to make sure it sounded like help. Not a trapdoor to another argument. Then I hit send. 3 hearts arrived. Then. A minute later. The reflex line I'd learned to anticipate. When can we visit? I stared at the screen. At old rope, braided through new asks. I typed what I'd said before, and meant again. Once. Here. Without fanfare. This isn't a hotel. No argument followed. Just the quiet of an email that had been useful, plus a boundary that had been heard. Even if it wasn't liked. I closed the laptop. The kids were already in pajamas. Ellie had taped a new rule to the ladder: lighthouse can flash for good news only. Noah had drawn a tiny map of our block and labeled the best puddle for splashing. Even though it hadn't rained in days. Is Grandma still mad? He asked from the top bunk. I sat on the ladder step and told the truth, wrapped in kindness. She's adjusting. I said. Sometimes, adjusting sounds like mad. He nodded the way kids do when an idea is a little too big and still fits. Lights out. The apartment settled. The radiator ticking its small metronome. I washed 2 mugs and left one to air dry, because perfection wasn't the goal. Peace you can hear without being startled by it was. I checked the locks. Not from fear. From ritual. I glanced at the little plant by the balcony. A new leaf had unfurled without a speech. The next morning. Dad texted. They're set up at our place. We'll keep it simple. I wrote back. Thank you. He replied. Proud of you. Son. Same punctuation as always. Different weight. Again. I screenshotted it and filed it in the album where I keep proof that people can learn. Saturday came honest and cold. The park delivered on the hot chocolate. And the twins counted marshmallows like scientists under oath. Pepper shook on command, and wiggled on non-command. Sabrina stood a few steps away. Sunglasses unnecessary. Under a pale sky. Toe tracing an invisible shape in the dirt. Landlord agreed to remove the bogus fees. She said finally. Month to month for now. Good. I said. That's a win. She stared at the steam rising from her cup. Then at me. We'll visit soon. I let the sentence land. It carried years inside it. I didn't add cushioning or carve exceptions. I gave the only answer that kept our house, and our promises intact. This isn't a hotel. No edge. Just fact. She rolled her eyes. Told the twins to say goodbye. And headed off with Pepper trotting. Collar bell. Making a small sound that belonged to them. The kids and I stayed until fingers went pink. We walked home by a route Noah chose because it had the best cracks for hopping. Ellie announced the lighthouse would flash twice that night, for lease victory and marshmallow diplomacy. I agreed. Good news only. Back upstairs. I screwed a small brass plaque to the inside of our door, the one that doesn't announce anything to the hallway. It doesn't say welcome. It says home. Not a performance. A reminder. A sign you read with your palm when you lock up and think. This is ours. And the word ours finally means the people who live here. I don't know what the next holiday will try to become. Tradition likes to change its outfit and call itself compromise. But I know the rules. Now guests are invited. Not inevitable. Help is an email with bullet points. Not a suitcase on my floor. And when someone says, don't make a scene. The kindest answer might be, I'm ending one. The apartment has learned its coastline. So have we. February arrived like a clean page that still remembered the imprint of the last paragraph. Mornings were boots by the door. The soft click of the deadbolt. The reliable thrum of radiators. Ellie taped a new rule under the lighthouse sign: no grumbling after 8 p.m. Then giggled and asked if exceptions could be granted for homework. Noah started a project for school, mapping our block by sound. Labeling the corner with the loudest bus brakes and the bakery that sighs when they open the oven. The apartment carried the kind of quiet that isn't empty. It's full of people doing their lives. Dad came by one Saturday with a good screwdriver in a belt that had seen more kitchens than any contractor would admit. He brought pastries and a bag of loose screws just in case. Which made Ellie ask if screws wander. We fixed a cabinet that had been sulking and tightened the wobbly leg on the table so Ellie's constellations wouldn't shake. We didn't talk about Christmas. We did talk about the plant by the balcony. which had put out another shy leaf. You watered at the base. Dad observed. Like praise. On his way out, he stood at the door with his hand on the new brass plaque inside home, reading the letters like a blind man, learning them by heart. Hard doesn't mean wrong, he said. To the plaque or to me? I couldn't tell. Maybe to both. The group chat shifted to photos of soups and weather screenshots. Mom sent a link for family-friendly board games. Then, an invitation with softened edges. Dinner Sunday. Just us. No surprises. I checked the calendar. Checked how my chest felt. Said yes. We went. We left on time. We came home without a suitcase's worth of expectation, tagging along. Measured progress. I told myself. Is still progress. Sabrina's lease reply landed late one evening. They agreed to strike the inflation rider, and the fake fee. Month to month for now. I wrote back. Good. Hold them to the written version. And resisted the pull to add a gold star, or a lecture, about clauses. 3 minutes later, we'll visit soon. The rope again. Coiled and familiar. I typed. This isn't a hotel. And put the phone face down. No fight followed. Just the small, contained thud of a boundary landing where it needed to. Weeks stacked. The lighthouse light got a rotation schedule. Noah added choir of radiators to his sound map. Ellie learned to make scrambled eggs without letting the shell join the party. On a Tuesday, I practiced the piano in the lounge while they did homework at a nearby table. And a neighbor with a lapdog put a peppermint on my music stand and whispered. That piece likes patience. Life. As it turns out, does too. There were still frictions. One afternoon, Mom called after a therapy appointment. She described as helpful, but intrusive. Which is to say helpful. It's strange, she said slowly. Realizing that when I said togetherness, sometimes I meant predictability. She didn't apologize. My mother speaks in tectonic plates. Not fireworks, but her words moved. We're learning, I said. All of us. She exhaled. And I heard the old kitchen chair creak. Your sister feels shut out. She's shut out of a door she doesn't rent, I said. Gentle. She's still invited to hot chocolate. Mom made a sound that could have been a laugh if it didn't also carry 30 years. In mid-February, Sabrina texted a photo of the twins in their new room. Bunk beds. A poster of the moon. Pepper curled in a circle on a rug like a punctuation mark. We made it work. She wrote 3 words. I didn't have to subsidize with anything. Looks good, I replied. A minute later, we'll visit soon. I stared at the screen and answered the way a path answers a shoe by keeping its shape. This isn't a hotel. She didn't reply. Silence can be many things. This one felt like the end of a rehearsal. On a gray Saturday that couldn't decide between rain and commitment. The 4 of us, Noah and Ellie, the twins, and me met for hot chocolate at the park. As promised, Sabrina stood a few feet back. Sunglasses on. Even though the sky had no brightness to shield against. The vendor with joy taped to the cart remembered us and slid in an extra marshmallow for each cup with a conspirator's wink. The twins declared 5 marshmallows barely adequate. Noah proposed a ranking system. Ellie suggested categories: size, melt speed, stickiness. Pepper licked a drip and wagged as if science had found its favorite lab test. Sabrina edged closer. My landlord tried to sneak in a community fee today, she said. Almost conversational. I told him no. He blinked like I'd spoken a different language. You held the line, I said. Good. She nodded, toe tracing a faint oval in the gravel. We'll figure it out, she murmured. And I realized she meant her life. Not my door. The relief I felt wasn't triumph. It was like setting down a bag I'd carried too far past my stop. The kids ran a relay that involved 1 bench, 3 pigeons, and rules I couldn't have followed if I tried. When the twins hugged me goodbye, one whispered, 4 marshmallows. Like a joke that had turned into a handshake. Sabrina collected them with efficient hands. We'll visit soon, she said. Out of habit more than plan. I kept my voice level. Even kind. This isn't a hotel. It didn't feel like a fight. It felt like we'd finally translated the sentence into a language everyone accepted: simple, declarative. Done. March crept in and pretended not to be winter. We returned library books on time 2 in a row. A streak and celebrated the no fine slip, with bakery cookies shaped like tiny trains, because Noah insisted precision deserves sugar. I taught Ellie the difference between a dry dish towel and a decorative one. And she made me a sign for the drawer towels you can use, divided by towels that are just pretty. I left it there because she's right, rules work better when they're labeled. One evening, making sandwiches for the next day, the mustard bottle sputtered a yellow comet across a plate. I wiped most of it and, for reasons that surprised me, left a quarter moon of it near the edge. In the morning, the sun would land there first. A silly little souvenir of a life that no longer had to be spotless to be safe. I stood there a beat longer than necessary, listening to the apartment, the radiator tick, the hallway's distant door thump, the little rustle of paper from the kids' backpacks. Every sound belonged. Dad texted a photo of a shelf he'd finally organized in the garage. Labels all the same height. Lines straight, as if he'd used a ruler. Took me 3 tries. He wrote, "Worth it." I sent him a picture of Ellie's towel sign. "Labels are policy." I replied, "Policy is kindness." He sent back a thumbs up and then, seconds later, "Proud of you, son." Same punctuation. Permanently different weight. Near the end of the month, a card arrived addressed to Noah and Ellie and my mother's looping script. Inside a photo of a dog treat shaped like a tiny bone, and a note, "Pepper says thank you for the hot chocolate drips. Love. Grandma." No commentary. No scheduling. Just a joke and a kindness. The kids howled. Ellie put the card on the fridge with a magnet that looks like a tomato. "Grandma is funny," she declared. As if this were a new category she could fit people into. We kept writing our small traditions on the calendar with a pencil that made a ferociously satisfying scratch mark at SAT. Skate day. Lantern parade make 2. I added Marco thank you on the first of every month because some lines hold because people hold them. And they deserve more than a nod in the lobby. When we ran into him one morning, he said, "The plant likes that spot." And I realized even he had noticed the shy new leaves. "It does," I said. "It's learning the light." On a Sunday in early spring, the twins came to the park with us again. And Sabrina didn't. They arrived with a note pinned to a backpack. "Back by noon soccer." We did the loop. Found the best stick for drawing on dirt. Negotiated number of pushes on the swings like diplomats. At the top of the hour, I walked them to the corner where Mom waited. Wearing a scarf, the color of overripe apricots. She smiled. Not wide, but real. "See you next week," she said. It wasn't a test. It was a possibility. "We'll see," I answered. Not as a dodge, but as a promise to check with the only calendar that mattered ours. That night, I stood by the door and ran my fingers across the grooves of the plaque. Home. The word had come to mean walls that hold laughter and rules that hold shape. It meant a cardboard lighthouse whose beam swept twice on good news nights and not at all when the day was ordinary because ordinary is its own kind of light. It meant a doorman who knew the difference between hospitality and surrender. It meant a family text thread that could share soup recipes without dragging a folding table into my lobby. A message from Sabrina blinked. For the first time in months it wasn't a question, it was a photo, the twins under a blanket fort. Pepper's tail a metronome at the edge of the frame. "Movie night," she wrote. No commentary. No ask. I sent a single heart back, the kind that says I saw this. I'm glad. Keep going. I didn't add words. Some stories do better when you stop narrating them into the shape you want and let them find their own. I don't know what the next holiday will try to become. Or whether my mother will ever fully separate togetherness from control in her vocabulary. I don't know how many more lease terms Sabrina will negotiate before she stops needing to show me the paper to believe she can. Here's what I do know. The last thing I said to my sister, in person and in text, the thing that finally landed as fact, and not defiance, was the same sentence every time. "This isn't a hotel." And on the other side of that sentence, the sign inside our door didn't change to welcome. It didn't need to. It stayed what it is. The right people know how to read it. The right people live here. Later, after lights out, I slipped the mustard plate into the sink and watched the quarter moon dissolve under warm water. A tiny astronomy undone by soap. The city hummed. The plant kept its quiet watch by the glass. From the kids' room came the faintest whisper, Ellie negotiating. In her sleep. How many marshmallows count as reasonable? I smiled. turned the deadbolt, and let the apartment settle. Not the quiet of absence. The quiet of a place that remembers it is allowed to keep itself. Story 2. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 27 years old. And for the last 3 years, I believed I was becoming part of the Reynolds family. A family that held tight together through holidays, birthdays, and quiet Sunday dinners. But the truth was far colder than the warmth they showed me in person. They never really accepted me. At least, not online. Not where it mattered most. Because every time they posted their perfect family photos on Facebook or Instagram, I was either cropped out completely or shoved into the background, like a forgotten shadow. No tags. No mentions. Nothing to mark me as one of them. I wasn't just overlooked, I was erased. It started subtly. Almost invisibly. The first Thanksgiving we spent together. I smiled through the big family photo. Standing awkwardly between Michael, my boyfriend, and his mother, Susan Reynolds. Michael held my hand gently. His eyes soft. Susan smiled politely, but without warmth. She was always flawless. The picture of a perfect family matriarch. Pearls. Tailored sweater. Voice steady and calm, like she was directing a play. The camera flashed, and the moment was captured. But when the photo was later posted online, my image had been carefully cropped out. The space where I'd stood was an empty sliver, like I'd never existed. I stared at the screen. The emptiness where my face should be. Feeling an ache I hadn't expected. I told myself it was an accident. Just a mistake. Maybe it was too close to the edge of the picture. A cropping issue. But then came Michael's dad's retirement party a few months later. With the same ritual smiles. Hugs. Group photos. Once again, I was erased online. Not even a group tag. Just a digital ghost. My heart sank each time I saw the posts. It wasn't about vanity, it was the sting of rejection. The unspoken message that I was an outsider masquerading as family. The pain was quiet but persistent. Like a slow drip wearing away at my self-worth. I tried to push it down. To not make it a thing. After all, Michael insisted I was family, and Susan told me to just smile and fit in. But the smiles felt forced. Like a mask I had to wear while the truth simmered just beneath. The social media posts became battlegrounds, public proof of private exclusion. Every tagged photo of Michael's siblings, parents, cousins. Each one a reminder that I wasn't included in the story they told the world about themselves. My breaking point came during Olivia's birthday party. Olivia, Michael's 8-year-old niece, was the one family member who treated me with genuine kindness. She ran up to me, hugged me tight, whispering that I was the best auntie ever. But even Olivia's love couldn't shield me from the hurt of the photos posted after the party. There I was. Blurred and untagged. Pushed to the margins of their digital album. And when I asked Michael about it, he shrugged and said, "Mom's just old-fashioned about these things." It felt like he was trying to excuse what was clearly deliberate. Then came Easter. The family lined up. As always. For the obligatory family photo. But this time, I said no. I smiled politely and stepped aside. Susan frowned. Confusion, mixing with offense. "Come on, Emily. Your family," she said. Voice tight. I returned a calm smile. "Only until the editing starts," I replied quietly. The room froze. The air thick with tension. Michael later told me I'd embarrassed his mother. That I was making it a thing. But was I really? Or was it already a thing? And I was just refusing to pretend otherwise. That night, alone in my apartment, I replayed every moment. Every photo. Every subtle exclusion. The ache had turned to anger. But beneath that was a fierce determination. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. I began to think about ways to turn the tables. To expose the cracks in the Reynolds family's perfect image. I remembered the times I'd overheard Susan talking candidly on the phone. Her voice laced with frustration about outsiders and keeping the family picture flawless. I realized I might have more leverage than I thought. My mind raced with plans and possibilities. I started quietly collecting evidence, screenshots, voice notes, messages. Each piece a small dagger piercing the illusion they carefully curated. I knew I couldn't do this alone. Tara, my best friend, and a lifestyle blogger with a fierce sense of justice, promised to help. She said, If anyone can expose the Reynolds hypocrisy, it's you. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope amid the growing storm. But what I didn't expect was the shadow from within the leak from someone inside the family who was already watching and waiting. Lin Dunwen, a former assistant to Susan who had been fired under mysterious circumstances, began to stir up rumors, tagging me in edited photos and spreading whispers online designed to isolate me further. It was like the Reynolds' perfect facade was cracking, and the pieces were falling in my direction, dangerously close. I knew the battle ahead would be messy. I knew I'd be fighting more than just social media slights. But something deep inside me had shifted. The girl who once longed to belong was ready to shatter the illusion and reclaim her place on her terms. The next time we gathered for Thanksgiving, I wasn't going to be just a ghost in the frame anymore. I had a secret that would change everything. And when I revealed it, the Reynolds family would never look the same again. The Easter party was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance for me to blend in, to finally feel part of the Reynolds family. Instead, it became the moment everything fell apart. The sun was soft that afternoon, filtering through the wide windows of Susan's pristine living room. Laughter echoed. Plates clattered. And Olivia twirled in her pastel dress. Michael stood close, whispering reassurances, telling me everything would be fine. But as soon as Susan announced, "Let's get the family picture," I felt the old familiar weight settling on my chest. I knew what was coming. When I declined the photo, saying I'd rather not be in it this time, Susan's expression shifted instantly from warm hostess to icy matriarch. "Emily, come on," she said sharply. "Your family." Her eyes, though, were cold, like a warning. "Only until the editing starts," I said, voice soft but clear. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's jaw tightened, and even Olivia looked up at me with a questioning frown. It was as if I had crossed an invisible line no one dared mention before. Susan left the room, her footsteps heavy, and I caught Michael's conflicted glance. Later, in the quiet of the kitchen, he told me, "Mom feels embarrassed. You're making a thing out of nothing." But to me, it was never nothing. It was everything, the way they erased me from their story, piece by piece. The truth was, Susan didn't want me there. Not really. She wanted the family to look perfect, undisturbed by the outsider who didn't fit her narrative. Days after Easter, the social media posts surfaced. This time, it wasn't just a mission. Someone had hacked the Reynolds family page and posted an altered photo of me, photoshopped into a silly, unflattering image with the caption, "Guess who crashed Easter?" The comments were cruel, snide remarks, exclusionary jabs. My heart twisted with a mix of betrayal and humiliation. How deep did their hatred run? Who was behind this? Michael's discomfort grew. He barely looked me in the eye during our calls, caught between his mother's fierce protectiveness and his feelings for me. I realized I was fighting alone, a ghost battling a hurricane. The isolation felt unbearable. But I clung to one lifeline: Tara, my best friend. She listened without judgment, fueled my resolve. "This is war," she said. "And you have the ammo. We just need to aim carefully." As we began digging, Tara discovered that Lyndon Wynne, the woman Susan had fired for managing the family's social media, was stirring trouble online, planting those vicious edits and false rumors. Linda's bitterness was a secret weapon, fueling the Reynolds facade to crack further. She was the invisible hand, turning the screws. And we had to be ready. At the same time, I replayed the voice notes I'd secretly recorded during family dinners, the clipped tones in Susan's voice when she spoke about outsiders like me, the way she plotted to keep the Reynolds image spotless at any cost. Those recordings became my shield and sword. They were the truth Susan desperately tried to hide, and I was ready to wield them. But the emotional toll was heavy. Night after night, I lay awake, wrestling with doubt and fear. Could I really expose them? What if Michael sided with his mother? What if I lost everything? Each doubt was a knot tightening in my chest. Yet beneath the fear was a fierce flame. Justice wasn't just about me anymore. It was about demanding recognition, respect, and ending the toxic cycle of invisibility. Then came the moment when Olivia, innocent and unfiltered, broke through my armor. She slipped into my apartment one afternoon, clutching a homemade card. "Aunt Emily," she said, I don't want you to be invisible. Her small hand holding mine. Her eyes wide, and trusting it was a reminder of what was at stake. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for belonging. For truth. And for a family that meant what it said. With Tara's help, I began planning. We mapped out the timing. The delivery. The impact. Thanksgiving was approaching a perfect storm of tradition and expectation. If I could reveal Susan's cruelty, then, in front of the entire family, there would be no denying it. No escaping the truth. No more photoshopped erasures. No more invisible sidelines. The plan was risky. It could backfire spectacularly. But I had nothing left to lose. The Reynolds' perfect world was built on lies. And I was going to pull it apart. One voice note at a time. As I rehearsed the words, the moments, the timing, I felt a strange calm settle. This was my reckoning. My chance to be seen. And when I stood before them that Thanksgiving night, I wasn't just Emily Carter, the erased girlfriend, I was the woman who would finally be impossible to ignore. Thanksgiving evening arrived with a brittle chill settling over Chicago. The kind that sharpens nerves and heightens anticipation. Susan's house was decked out in its annual holiday finery, warm candlelight, polished silverware, and the unmistakable scent of roasted turkey mingling with cinnamon and cloves. The Reynolds family had gathered, as always, for their traditional photo session. A ritual they performed with obsessive precision. But this year, I was no longer just a silent participant in their tableau. I came armed with a secret one they could never erase. The room buzzed with polite chatter and forced smiles as Susan, in her perfectly tailored sweater, motioned for us all to assemble. Michael squeezed my hand briefly, his gaze flickering with unease. I felt the weight of everyone's eyes expectant, judging, waiting to see if I would fall back into my old place, invisible and voiceless. Instead, I stepped forward. Before Susan could raise the camera, I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The voice that filled the room was unmistakable, Susan's own words, laced with condescension and fear, confessing how she deliberately kept me out of the picture, afraid I would tarnish their family's flawless image. Her voice cracked, betraying the cold control she wielded like a shield. The room froze. Forks paused mid-air. Eyes widened. Breaths caught in throats. Michael's face paled. Olivia's innocent smile faded as confusion clouded her gaze. Susan's composure shattered. The proud matriarch reduced to a woman exposed. Her lips trembled. The carefully crafted facade crumbling in real time. David shifted uncomfortably. The legal eagle silenced by truth. He could neither defend nor deny. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then Susan's voice, barely above a whisper, tried to reclaim authority. But it rang hollow. The perfect family image they'd curated for years was unraveling in front of them, no edits. No cropping. No filters could hide this reality. Michael stepped closer to me, his eyes searching mine. I saw conflict, guilt, and finally, resolve. Emily, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I should have stood by you sooner. Olivia tugged at my sleeve, her small hand warm and steady, grounding me in this storm of revelations. Tara, who had secretly recorded the entire moment on her phone, glanced at me with a mixture of pride and relief. The tide had turned, but the fallout was immediate. Susan retreated to a corner, tears streaming silently as the family fractured into whispered conversations and pointed glances. Some siblings took my side. Shocked at the duplicity, others stayed loyal to Susan, unwilling to face the fracture in their perfect world. The room pulsed with unspoken accusations and fractured loyalties. As the night wore on, the veneer of normalcy thinned. Michael and I found a quiet moment away from the tension, and he confessed how trapped he'd felt, torn between his mother's demands and his love for me. I was scared, he admitted. Scared of losing my family. But scared of losing you too. His honesty ignited a fragile hope inside me. Yet the battle wasn't over. Linda Nguyen, the disgruntled ex-assistant, retaliated viciously online, spinning tales that painted me as a manipulative outsider trying to tear the family apart. Her posts ignited a social media storm, dividing the Reynolds clan and their followers. The fight for truth had spilled beyond Susan's walls into the digital arena, a battlefield with no rules. But this time, I was ready. With Tara's help, I countered the lies with facts, screenshots, and the undeniable recordings. Each post dismantled Linda's narrative piece by piece, rallying support from friends, colleagues, and even some family members who had grown tired of the charade. In the weeks that followed, the Reynolds family was forced to confront their fractures openly. Apologies were exchanged, but wounds ran deep. Susan's grip loosened, and Michael stood firmer beside me. Olivia, ever the innocent heart, became my greatest ally, her simple acceptance a beacon amid the chaos. Through it all, I learned that belonging isn't given, it's fought for. That sometimes, to be seen, you have to step out of the shadows and shine a light so bright, it can't be ignored. My revenge wasn't about tearing down for the sake of pain, it was about reclaiming my place in a world that tried to erase me. And in that, I found freedom. In the weeks that followed that explosive Thanksgiving night, life for the Reynolds family, and for me, changed in ways none of us could have predicted. The perfect, polished image Susan had spent decades cultivating was shattered, and the fallout rippled through every corner of their lives. I felt the weight of it every morning as I woke. The quiet, knowing that my decision had started something irreversible. At first, the silence was deafening. Susan withdrew into herself, her once commanding presence reduced to a shadow. Family gatherings became tense affairs, where conversations skirted around the elephant in the room, my presence. Michael tried to bridge the gaps, but the fractures ran deep. I could see the strain in his eyes, the conflict between his love for me and the loyalty he still felt toward his mother. One afternoon, as I sat alone in my apartment, my phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. It was a simple text, but to me, it was a lifeline. I miss you at dinner. Can we bake cookies this weekend? The innocence in those words cut through the chaos and reminded me why this fight mattered. Olivia wasn't just a niece or a child caught in the crossfire. She was a symbol of the hope that even broken families could heal. Slowly, the walls between us began to crumble. Michael and I made a pact to face the storm together. No matter how fierce it got, we started attending therapy sessions, both as a couple and family, trying to navigate the complex emotions tangled up in betrayal, pride, and fear. It was exhausting and raw, but necessary. The old dynamics didn't disappear overnight. Progress was measured in small victories, a genuine smile here, a heartfelt apology there. Meanwhile, Linda's social media campaign against me lost momentum. Her venomous posts were met with growing backlash as friends and even some Reynolds family members called her out. Tara's support was unwavering, amplifying my voice and ensuring the truth wasn't drowned in noise. The digital battlefield was brutal, but it was where I learned the power of resilience and community. In an unexpected twist, David Reynolds, the usually silent patriarch, began to step forward, quietly but firmly. He confronted Susan, urging her to let go of control and accept the new family reality. His intervention surprised us all. The man who had seemed passive was quietly becoming an agent of change. His presence brought a new balance to the fractured household, forcing Susan to confront her own fears and prejudices. The tension at family events never fully disappeared, but they evolved. Instead of exclusion and silent battles, there were moments of awkward honesty and tentative reconciliation. Michael stood by me openly now, no longer the hesitant son torn between worlds. Olivia's warmth never wavered, her simple acts of kindness bridging divides adult pride had created. For me, this journey was transformative. What began as a fight for recognition became a deeper exploration of identity, belonging, and self-worth. I realized that family isn't about flawless pictures or social media perfection, it's about vulnerability, acceptance, and sometimes, hard truths, spoken in the quiet aftermath of conflict. The road ahead remains uncertain. Relationships can be fragile, and forgiveness is a process, not an event. But I have learned that standing up for oneself, demanding respect, and embracing the messy realities of human connection is the only way to find true belonging. As the next holiday season approached, I felt a cautious optimism. The Reynolds family was no longer perfect by society's standards, but it was real, and for the first time in years, I felt truly seen. The aftermath of everything, the confrontation, the unraveling of the Reynolds family's polished image, the painful truths laid bare left a mark, not just on them but deeply on me. It was in those quiet moments alone that I truly understood what had happened, not just externally, but inside myself. I had been fighting for more than just a place in a family photo. I was fighting for my dignity, my identity, and for a voice that had been silenced far too long. The psychological weight of invisibility is heavier than most realize. It's the subtle erosion of confidence that comes from being present yet unseen. Loved, yet not fully accepted. I remember sitting in my apartment after one particularly difficult family dinner, replaying every smile and cold glance. My body was tense, heart pounding, not just from anger, but from a deep-rooted fear that perhaps I was meant to be the outsider forever. That fear is suffocating. But as I reflected, I saw a different truth emerging. The anger I felt wasn't destructive, it was a catalyst. It sparked the courage to confront the lies, to demand recognition where there was none. Revenge, in my case, wasn't about cruelty or malice. It was a form of justice. A reclaiming of power in a system built to exclude me. It was ethical and necessary. Susan's actions, though painful, revealed her own vulnerabilities. Fear of losing control, of being replaced, of confronting imperfection in her family. Michael's hesitance showed his human struggle to balance love and loyalty. Olivia's innocence shone as a reminder that acceptance is learned, not innate. And Tara's steadfast support exemplified the power of chosen family and solidarity in adversity. I realized then that family drama isn't black and white. It's a tapestry of flawed people, each with their own pain and pride, mistakes and regrets. To truly heal requires empathy as much as courage, acknowledging not just how you've been wronged, but why the other person acted as they did. This journey taught me that visibility is more than physical presence, it's emotional acknowledgement. To be seen is to be valued. To be heard is to be respected. And those who try to erase others do so out of their own fears and insecurities. Not because the erased lack worth. For anyone watching who has ever felt sidelined, overlooked, or silenced, your story matters. Your pain is valid. But so is your power. Standing up, speaking out, demanding your place isn't just brave, it's necessary for your own liberation and for changing the toxic cycles that keep others invisible. Looking back, I am grateful for this struggle. It revealed who I am, what I deserve, and the strength I carry. The Reynolds family will never be perfect in the way Susan once dreamed. But they are real, and so am I. As this chapter closes, I want you to remember this: belonging is not about fitting into a mold. It's about breaking free from the need to be accepted by those who refuse to see you, and creating your own space where you are celebrated just as you are. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, or know someone who has, please share this video, like, comment, and subscribe if you want more stories that dive deep into the messy, beautiful realities of family and revenge. Together, we can shine light on the shadows where so many are left unseen.